That's the high sign? We're wired. Okay. Let me put some reading glasses on. This is... I'm sorry? This is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. Welcome to the meeting number 534 of the Lake George Park Commission. This morning we're at the North Queensbury Firehouse. Thank you very much for hosting us. Welcome and introductions. Everybody's here. Everybody can look to the next. We don't really do any formal introductions. Item 2 on the agenda, and we do operate from an agenda, folks, and it's quite disciplined in the 18 years that I've been here anyways. I'll take this time to point, Kara, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Item 2, approval of meeting minutes and fiscal actions reports.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve, means you've read it.
Second.
Second.
I can't vote on this because I have not read the minutes.
Most honest lady in Queensbury.
Sent out.
Okay, so we have
One abstention.
one abstention. Our quorum will still carry. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the motion's carried. Approval of fiscal actions report. Kathy, would I assume that you're exempting yourself from that?
No, I did read.
You did read that, okay.
Yes.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, motion's carried. Item 3, moving along. Procelicor as an aquatic invasive species management tool. Do we have Bob ready?
We do have Bob. Yeah, sounds like he's...
Okay, there we go. Dave, you want to introduce him, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Bob Bombard is a long-time, many-decade limnologist, weight management specialist. He's worked for DEC, worked for Darien Freshwater Institute for the last 12 years. He's worked for Warren County Soil and Water Conservation. So Bob will take you through this presentation, but we've had the benefit of having Warren County Soil and Water Conservation be actively engaged in Eurasian water milfoil management really for decades. Bob brought it to a whole new level based on his experience. He's been working on Lake George since the 1980s and many other water bodies, certainly in this area. So Soil and Water over the last maybe a few years has been doing aquatic filming as well for different types of projects, and they've taken on the idea of looking at Eurasian milfoil control projects as well. So I asked Bob, again, based on his decades of experience, if he could come and just provide some of his filming, some of his background and knowledge on the topic, and we're thrilled to have Bob here today with us. So thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. We were approached by the association at Sunnyside. We've been working with them for quite a while. They informed us they were going to use Procelicor. So the first thing we said to them was, we'd like to go in, film as much of the situation as we can prior to treatment, and then following treatment, we would go in at 30, 60, and 90 days for as long as we could talk our boss into letting us do it. He's been pretty open to it so far, so that's what we did. We went in on June 15th. We filmed conditions prior to treatment, and bear with me because this is working, which surprised me. So we went in and filmed the larger beds, and then as much of the native plant community as we could get around to see. This was a whole lake treatment. We did diver surveys. We went down, we looked and noted every species we could find. In June, early June, many of the natives aren't totally up yet. So we came up with a species list of 19 natives, and two invasives, curly leaf pondweed and, of course, Eurasian water milfoil. This is the filming on the south end of the lake. It's an interesting growth pattern we see here. We believe it's probably growing this way because they have been hand harvesting and suction harvesting for years in areas. Excuse me. I don't know if there's a volume control on this. I'm sorry. You're going to hear all sorts of strange noises. It's just what happens when you're underwater. So we noted all of the native plants. We noted all the invasives that we could find, and we filmed them. And the reason we did this is because the rate toss method is somewhat suspect. There's a lot of plants we can't get with a rate toss, and then there's just the randomness of it. So we wanted to film as much as we could so we could find every plant we could possibly find in here. And there's another minute and a half or 2 minutes of basically the same thing, so we'll move along. So we went out on July 15th to film what had occurred following treatment. And what we found is pretty much a total loss of milfoil. There's still standing crop, but the plant is dead. Somewhere along in here, it'll show up. Sooner or later. And this is the exact same spot we were looking at prior. Now we do have natives coming up, and that's pretty much normal. They come up later than Eurasian water milfoil, which is and here's you can see some of the dead milfoil here. Here. Stems turn black, and it just basically lies down. Oops, sorry. So we've been diving in Sunnyside. As a matter of fact, I was at Sunnyside about 15 to 20 minutes ago. Nice clear day. Yet to see a milfoil plant. This is 2 years officially. This is the third season we've been out. I was not actually doing a plant survey today. I was working on another non-point program we're doing there. But the water's clear. We had a Secchi reading of about 16 to 18 feet, which for a 20-foot lake is pretty good. And so far, we have yet, in 6 to 7 trips, we've yet to find a living Eurasian water milfoil plant. We'll be going in again the end of this month, and then once again 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days after, looking for milfoil. So far, we have not found a living milfoil plant yet. We originally found 19 species in there on that pre-treatment survey. We're up to 22 now. That's including excluding the loss of milfoil and P. crispus. P. crispus, another invasive, disappears fairly rapidly in the summer. So our later surveys, we didn't expect to find it, and we did. Nor did we find milfoil. I gave this talk to you guys a couple of years ago. At that meeting, I ran into a gentleman, Jim Niles, from Lake Luzerne. He buttonholed me after the the meeting and asked if we would do the same thing on Lake Luzerne because they had a planned treatment coming up. So on May 30th of last year, we went out, did our pre-treatment dive in Lake Luzerne, pretty much doing the same thing. We went to the beds that were going to be treated, filmed the conditions there. Now, in Sunnyside, the only milfoil found in the survey was Eurasian. That's not true with Lake Luzerne. Lake Luzerne had Myriophyllum tenellum and Myriophyllum sibiricum, two native milfoils to the region. Those were noted. I think we found 22 to 23 species here on the early dive, the pre-treatment dive. And this is pretty much indicative of the areas that they were going to have treated. So we came back on June 30th. You'll have to excuse the filming. It's a little bit different because we've actually switched cameras. And this one, it's different. So this is post-treatment. Here's a milfoil plant. You can see the stems turn black. It's putting out its advantageous roots already because it recognizes it's dying and wants to reproduce. Also, unfortunately, we see here Biden's, Zostarella, Beckii. Used to be Biden's. I'm old. I have the old names. Hadaranthera, which is another species talked about. Utricularia, Robrizii, a native population. The native population is doing fine. The treatment did kill Sibiricum, the native milfoil. It doesn't seem to have had an effect on the tenellum, another native. So far, we're seeing a pretty significant rise in the population of native plants where milfoil had been. It's just kind of the way it is. The milfoil's gone now, so the natives can repopulate where they should be. We were asked by Dave to do the plant survey for this Percellocor treatment. Because I'm old, I prefer the old diver transect method for recognizing plants and doing the plant survey. The APA no longer accepts that as a method. They prefer the point intercept method. So what I did was I deployed a diver. While I was out doing the rake toss, I deployed divers in to film as much of the bay as we could get data on. This is our diver swimming in Blair's Bay. As you can see, there's almost nothing but milfoil. Where the milfoil grows, it's 99% of the population. You'll see some native plants known for being in deeper, darker waters at the bottom. Hell, my laser thing isn't working. But if you take a look at these beds, we're talking about 99% milfoil. 1-2 native plant found inside the bed, but milfoil's it's probably the number one threat to the native plant population in Lake George today. Someday it'll be something else. But right now, the worst thing for the native plant population in Lake George is Eurasian water milfoil. Where it grows in giant monocultures. So, and it's not hard to document. When I started with RPI, I think there was 105 sites with milfoil after my first year. When I left, I think there was about 211. And I live on the lake, I swim in the lake, and there's very few places I can go today and not see Eurasian water milfoil stuff. Personal opinion, but this is what we're seeing in select spots. I mean, the whole lake isn't like this. These are problematic areas. And I suppose Dave can speak to what's been done at that particular spot as treatment for it. I know, I believe we tried vented burying there when I was with RPI. I think we tried suction harvesting there when I was up with RPI. Hand harvesting was not used there because it was just too large a population for that to be an effective method. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything you have. Sure.
I am more concerned. I know that the milfoil can be hand harvested. I'm a gardener. I deal with weeds in my garden. Underwater gardening is not much different. I'm more concerned about this poison, which I'd like to read. Chloropyroxyphene benzyl, 2-pyridine carboxylic acid, 4-amino, 3-chloro-6, 4-chloro, 2-chloro-3-methoxyphenol, 5.
Miss?
That's 2.7.
What's your question? What's your question of the speaker?
My question is, how are you not more afraid of this poison than milfoil, which can be hand harvested and removed? This poison will not be able to be restored if it's put in the lake for hundreds of years, if not more. And this poison, that's just 2.7% being breathed. We don't know if the other 97.3% are there. It could be GMO, it could be anything. I'm not comfortable with anything that takes that long to
It's not a question for him.
I don't want to be consuming that, drinking that. I did the research. I know that it breaks down into 5. The acid ingredient breaks down into 5 persistent chemicals.
I'm going to ask you to stop. This is not in the speaker's expertise.
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
What is it's not much different than gardening above the water. Try it.
I will volunteer.
Try it.
If someone brings me, I would love to
It's
go
very
in there.
different.
I would love to go in there and help, okay? I'm someone who gets down and dirty with gardening all the time. I will go in there and volunteer for training.
Let me.
Okay.
My question is, how can you be more comfortable with that ingredient that I listed off than milfoil?
Okay. Time out for a second. I will tell you now, folks, I will not lose control of this meeting, nor will I lose control of myself. Let me tell you what the agenda says. We're going to go through all of these Lake George Park Commission projects. Always, number 13 on the agenda is public comments. Anybody who wants to speak, no matter what time it is, will be allowed to speak for 3 to 4 minutes. So you have the chance to recite what you just recited if I couldn't hear it clearly. You'll come to the mic, you'll cite your name, and I don't care if you give your address, but give your locale so we know where you are. Remember that New York State law requires us to videotape our meetings, so whatever you say is going to be videotaped for perpetuity. Don't embarrass your grandchildren. If someone next to you has already said the same thing that you want to say, let it go. Just accept that. So that's how the meeting is going to happen. If you have a legitimate question for a speaker with very narrow context for that subject, we're welcome to participation. But this is a Lake George Park Commission meeting amongst the Lake George Park commissioners. Having said that, I'm off my...
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks for your help. I understand you're retiring soon, or have?
That is correct. I'm on day 1 of my final 4.
Leave your phone number at the desk so that we can find you. We need your help, I'm sure, someday. But we,
No, if you have a question.
oh,
you have to-
sorry.
Specifically, though.
You showed in your video that there was the dead, and the water was dead.
Yes.
What happens to the dead vegetation?
Good question.
It drops to the bottom and decays, and that's it.
So
Drops to the bottom.
what about
Same thing it does every year.
when things wash up, on the shore, we get kind of the green, we get leaves and
Yeah.
stuff that washes up on the beach.
Yeah, the stuff you get up on the beach from milfoil is generally the fragments, which is its major form of reproduction.
Right. So it's little pieces of it kind of break
Yes.
off. The dead pieces break off, and then
Well, they aren't dead; they're alive.
They're alive.
From living milfoil, those pieces that you see floating in the lake,
the dead milfoil only rests on the bottom.
it drops to the bottom and decays.
And it doesn't move.
It
It doesn't get washed.
could it? Yeah, I suppose, but no more than any other native aquatic plant.
So, but the native aquatic plants haven't, if they've been treated with the herbicide, then all the dead plants have been treated with herbicide, correct? I guess I'm wondering, because you were showing it dying, like, what happens to it after it dies?
It breaks up and falls to the bottom, and then is broken down by, invertebrates and
You go to
bacteria.
the beach and there's like seaweed and stuff on the shore, and doesn't it kind of, the waves kind of move it up and it lands on the
Well, generally speaking, when you see that, that's because people have pulled it up with their anchors or their fishing line or something like
So when
that.
it's dead, it doesn't float.
This doesn't. It'll stand for a short period, then it drops to the
And then it
bottom.
sinks.
That's what we've seen.
Stays on the
Yep.
bottom.
Yep. Yeah.
What happens to all the other plants that are treated when they die and migrate all around the lake? They carry the solid all over the lake?
I'm sorry.
What happens to the plants that are not milfoil, that are in the water near the milfoil that's being treated? When they die and migrate around the lake, does it carry the solid with it?
Good question. Unknown.
Put it in the lake.
Most of the other native plants aren't affected by this chemical. As we have seen with 3 years of data, that the native plant population comes back actually stronger because it's no longer being shaded out by the monoculture Eurasian water.
That's all well and good, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what happens to
Well,
it.
if you're asking me if native plants take up this chemical, I don't know,
Hey,
but it doesn't kill them.
come on, folks. Well, yeah, but you're asking while he's talking. I'm sorry.
You're not answering a specific question, you're avoiding it, that's why.
I avoided nothing.
He avoided nothing. Come
There's
on.
no sign that the native plants take it up and have an adverse effect,
I'm going to call this part of the
And when
meeting.
they
You've had your
die-
hand up.
which they do
Do you have
every year. They drop to the bottom
Time out.
and decompose.
That's an answer. Ma'am, you're the last question.
What have you in your research found any of the herbicide resistant? Does it build
We are-
resistance at all?
We're strictly looking at the plant populations. I'm doing no chemical research. There's operations on Lake George that would be very adept at that, and maybe we should talk to them about doing some of that research. But I'm strictly doing a plant survey.
Got it.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Bob. You're welcome.
This part of the meeting is adjourned. Over. David, do we have some speakers from the other locales?
We do. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. So next agenda item is we do have a few lake managers from around some of our local lakes. We have Jim Niles, the Deputy Town Supervisor from Lake Luzerne. We have Paul Derby from Glen Lake, and then we have Bob Hunt from Lake Sunnyside. I've asked them to come here. They have no involvement in Lake George. I've worked with these guys for a number of years. Paul and Bob going back into the 90s. and just ask them to come and talk for a few minutes about their experience, what they saw, what the results were. So maybe we can start with Jim from Lake Luzerne. That's the most recent treatment. We can kind of go from there. So Jim, thanks for coming.
I hate to speak with anybody like that, but I'll do the best I can. As Dave said, I'm Jim Miles. I'm Deputy Supervisor and Town Councilman in Lake Luzerne. I have a bachelor's degree from a million years ago in
Jim?
environmental science.
Jim,
But
can you use the mic, please, because we have to record this.
Maybe he can go.
I do have a bachelor's degree in environmental science, but I'm not going to claim to be an environmental scientist. I didn't use that at all during my career. I moved to Lake Luzerne a few years ago. Was zoning board chairman when they asked me to look into this product called Facilocor, because the board had heard that I had an environmental science degree. I set up a committee of Lake Association members, and we started evaluating this product, read papers, went to conferences, and so on. And eventually we made the decision to proceed using Facilocor in Lake Luzerne. Lake Luzerne is a little over 100 acres. We were getting complaints from the motel owners and the seasonal residents, the beachgoers, and so on. The Eurasian milfoil was moving in. We were suction harvesting for years. In 2022 was the last year that we suction harvested. It cost us $52,000. Which for a little community with our budget, that's big enough. In September of 2021, we contracted Darien Freshwater Institute to do plant surveys. And to no surprise, we found bundles and bundles of Eurasian water milfoil. So we started to proceed, and to make our history short, in August of 2022, we contracted with Solitude Lake Management to prepare the applications to New York State DEC and to the Adirondack Park Agency to obtain a permit to treat our lake. The permit process started in January of 2023. We got our APA permit in May of 2023. We got our NCON permit a little bit before that. On May 31st of 2023, just about a year ago, we installed approximately 10 gallons of Facilocor over a 32-acre part of our lake, which was basically the perimeter. The deepest point in Lake Luzerne is 52 feet. The average depth is about 20 feet. Bob already stole a little bit of my thunder. At a meeting, I ran into Bob Bombard and asked them if they would do the same type of video recording for us so that we could document what the lake looked like before and after the treatment. Prior to the permit process, I should mention that we had an extensive public information program. We had 4 opportunities at the town board level for people to talk to us. We did 3 mailings. We had 1 open informational meeting where we had experts there and people were just allowed to ask questions. It was not a formal meeting. The bottom line was it was a town decision, town board decision, because it's our lake, the town owns the lake, the town board was going to pay for it. So we did have a formal public hearing, which we had 1 person attended. That person spoke in favor of it. After we treated the lake on May 31st, the contractor was required to do water testing 8 hours after, 24 hours after, and a week after the treatment. The agreed sampling points for water was 5 points. Each point tested for 2 chemicals, so I'm calling that 10 tests. 3 of the points were around the lake. 1 was at the exit discharge of the lake. It discharges into what we call Mill Creek. Mill Creek discharges into the Hudson. The 5th point was at the discharge from Mill Creek into the Hudson. So anyways, the 8-hour test of those 10 things, 6 of them were already non-detectable. The product was installed in the morning. That evening, 6 of those tests, it was undetectable. 24 hours after the test, 2 2 more of those were undetectable. So we already couldn't detect 8 of those test points. And by the end of the week period, they were all undetectable. The Warren County team, as we said earlier, came in and videoed, and their last video was 30 days later, and we found no milfoil. Our residents have been extremely happy with the results of this. But keep in mind, folks, I have no interest in endorsing a product, none whatsoever. I'm an elected official. I'm doing what I think is best for the town of Lake Luzerne and what's best for the watershed of Lake Luzerne. We're going to continue doing several things. We don't have to harvest this year, so we've set up a number of other tests to help our watershed and keep track of what's going on and perhaps get a better understanding of Eurasian water milfoil, amongst other things. So my final point is that when I was working with the Lake Association Committee to determine whether we were going to do this, we were digesting tons and tons and tons of data. And we finally kind of came to the conclusion that what we're looking at is a risk-benefit situation. It had a potential benefit. It was pretty well proven that Bacillochlor will kill Eurasian water milfoil. It's temporary. It's a silver bullet. All right. It can't be the only tool in your toolbox, or you're going to be right back where you started from 2 or 3 years more. But we decided we could not really find any risks. So we decided from a risk-benefit standpoint, the town and the watershed would benefit from installing Bacillochlor. I guess that pretty much concludes my little presentation. You have a tough decision to make. I come to these kind of things to tell you what happened. I'm not a chemist, I'm not a biologist, but this is what happened. It's not speculative, it's not what if, this is what happened. And I appreciate your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We appreciate that. Maybe next we can have Paul Derby from Glen Lake come up and talk for a couple minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. Not sure which way to turn here. I'm Paul Derby, president of Glen Lake Protective Association. I've been involved in the management of Glen Lake for actually more than 30 years, hard to believe. We've had milfoil in Glen Lake. It was discovered in the 1980s. It's been a problem in the lake for decades. We tried several things. We tried suction harvesting. In our dense milfoil beds, we found that wasn't effective. In fact, our suction harvesters actually gave up on that at one point. We used sonar about 15 years ago, which had some effect. In 2020, we used Procelicor on 3 spot treatments on Glen Lake that were 3 monolithic dense beds of milfoil. And in those 3 areas with Procelicor, well, just to step back, we do spring plant surveys and we do late summer plant surveys as well. In those areas that were treated with Procelicor, they worked extremely well. The point that you could see the milfoil before that, and after the treatment, a few weeks after that, the milfoil was gone. And you can almost draw a line around where the milfoil was. So that season, very good control, in fact, effective management. The next year, we didn't have to treat for milfoil in those areas, or the next year. So that's 21, 22. In 2023, we did find sparse milfoil in some of those areas, and Glen Lake is unique in the sense that most of our water comes through the Great Escape and through that very large fen, which is loaded with significant milfoil. So it's always feeding the lake. We have to be able to manage it in order to have a lake that we can use. So in 2023, we did start seeing sparse milfoil in those areas, which was expected. But I would say that Procelicor worked very, very well for Glen Lake. I could answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. And last, we have Bob Hunt from Lake Sunnyside. Worked with Bob also since the 1990s on this. Bob has been actively engaged as has Paul for many years. So Bob, thanks for coming today.
Okay, you're welcome. Glad to be here. Just a couple things I'd like to say. Sunnyside Lake is a little lake. It's 30 acres, 30 feet deep, in the deepest spot. And, it's a pleasure to live on it. And I've been the president of the Lake Association for about 25 years, but I gave it up a few years ago. Our president couldn't be here today, so he asked me to come in his stead. But everything's been said about Lake Luzerne and Glen Lake. We've had the same experience. Milfoil attacked us, 25 years ago. First came, we didn't know what to do. We went through treating with sonar. We went through hand harvesting, and I guess a couple of things that hasn't been mentioned. I'm not a scientist. No one in our association is a scientist, but we relied on New York State. This is an approved chemical to be used in lakes in New York State. The scientists have studied it, so we took their word for it and used in our lake. And as far as how it worked beautifully. Just like the other lakes have said, the milfoil has really been going now. When we first decided to use the chemical in our lake, we said, okay, we're going to do this once, and then we're going to hand harvest. This was when we decided to use sonar years ago. And then we're going to hand harvest. Even though it costs money, we formed a tax district to collect enough funds to be able to afford to do some of these things. And so we said, all right, we're going to do it once. And then we really made efforts at trying to hand harvest. We actually have a couple of guys on our lake who are divers, and we did a little experiment. We outlined an area that was probably 100 by 200 feet, and they would go into the lake and they would harvest milfoil plants. This is before the treatment. And they spent, they went into the lake. And the experiment was a success. We were able to clear that small area of all the milfoil. However, it took them, they'd have to go in the lake almost every 2 weeks because new plants would come up constantly. And that went on for 2 or 3 years. And if you were to hand harvest a large area, even our whole lake of 30 acres, or Lake George, my God, the cost of having divers do that is just astronomical. And so we figured we could not afford that. So therefore, we decided to go with this new chemical, Silicor, which again works amazingly well. So I know you got a tough decision to make as Lake George people as to whether to do this or not. But again, like the other lakes, it worked for us. You can't. We were out this morning. Bob Bombard was on our lake on another project with us this morning, and we couldn't find a milfoil plant. It's been 2 years since we treated. The native plants have come back almost to normal. So for our lake, it was a success, and I hope you guys make a decision that's a success for your lake, for Lake George. Thank you.
Thank you.
You both mentioned, actually not Lake Luzerne, I'm sorry, the other lake, Glen Lake. You both mentioned that you used sonar in the past, right, which is another herbicide. Can I ask why you stopped using sonar?
We also do that.
You did. Why did you stop using that herbicide?
The sonar worked. It did kill the milfoil. When we were in our worst case scenario with milfoil, our lake was like there were islands. The milfoil had grown to the surface, and then it flattens out and grows. And if you fell out of a boat when you were in that milfoil, you probably would drown because the plants are so thick and mass. So it got so bad. And this was, before and after we treated it. So it was quite a while after we treated it sonar that the plants came back. So we just figured that sonar is not going to work, and then we learned this new chemical is out, and the state has approved it for use in our lakes. So yeah, we did not want to use sonar again because it did help, but it wasn't the complete cure that we now think Bacillochlor might be. We're not sure yet. Who knows what the future holds? None of us do. But you know, sometimes you take a risk because it's the best thing to do. We all are going to leave here today. We're all going to get in our cars and drive home. That's a risk, but you do it every day because you know it's the best thing to do at that point. You know.
You didn't stop using sonar because of the health implications or because it was the end of Europe, or there's no other conversation around it?
No, we chose Bacillochlor because it's more specific to milfoil. It's very specific to milfoil. And from the lake surveys we did for our plant surveys, we found after that the number of natives increased in that area. Where that milfoil was gone. In particular, Elodea came to repopulate those areas. That's a native plant. That's a living plant. So, Bacillochlor, there's no water use restrictions. It's taken up immediately. That essentially.
In the case of Lake Luzerne, it was before my time, so I don't know exactly. But I've seen the pictures of the treatment. What they did is they had to cordon off the bay that they treated, which was extremely difficult and expensive. So more than that, I don't know.
So this was another herbicide that was EPA approved for use that ended up being very dangerous.
All right, I'm gonna ask for the questions to end. These are guest speakers.
It didn't work as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Not right yet. No. You can ask. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your time. Later on during the public comments, you can ask this Board of Commissioners any question you'd like. But this is not a question and answer time. You can sit there with your hand up, but I'm not going to call on you. Thank you, folks. I better check, see whether my phone's turned off before I ask you if your phones are turned on. And mine is. Following our agenda, Lake George Bacillochlor Milfoil Control Project. Analysis and summary of the legal issues. As you're all, I'm sure, aware that a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever it was, that the LGA brought suit against the APA, not the Park Commission, and it was procedural only, but not everybody understands the origin of that suit, nor the action of the suit, nor the settlement of the suit, nor the end of the suit. So council is going to tell us all of those things.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to try and explain the 13-page opinion and order from the Appellate Division 3rd Department for the commissioners and for the public. The decision is out there, and everyone is feel free to go and read it yourselves. But I do want to make a statement just outlining everything that happened there, because there was a lot of little nuances there. And what the Appellate Division did in this decision was not of the norm of something that the Appellate Division does. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the way the legal process works in New York State, you have the Supreme Court, which is your trial court. You have your appellate division divided into 4 departments. We reside in the 3rd department. And then you have the Court of Appeals, which is the highest court in the state. I have no idea why they say that's not called the Supreme Court, but that's what we were taught in law school, so that's the highest court in the state. The LGA, the Waterkeeper, and a few named individuals did bring what's known as an Article 78 against the APA. Again, not the Park Commission per se, but against the APA for granting the permits back in 2021, 22. And what that means is they went to Supreme Court, Honorable Robert Mueller, and said, Judge Mueller, the APA's decision was irrational, it was arbitrary, it was capricious. That was the standard. After about a year with some back and forths and some motion practice, the judge agreed and the judge granted the petition. Thereafter, the APA, through the Attorney General's office, Joshua Talent, Associate Attorney General, took on this case as a state agency. And I want to just say specifically, Supreme Court's decision found that the APA's decision to grant the Commission's 2 applications for the application of Procellacor in Sheep Meadow Bay and Blair's Bay was irrational, stating, quote, and this was Judge Mueller, "It does not appear that the board had sufficient information to consider alternate methods or to determine whether to hold an adjudicatory hearing." And based on this, on those procedural instances, the permits were denied. As I indicated, the APA appealed this decision to the Appellate Division 3rd Department. The APA went forward, did oral arguments, and on March 27th, 2024, the 3rd Department, in a 13-page opinion and order, unanimously reversed the Supreme Court's decision and dismissed the petition. Throughout its opinion, the Appellate Division took the time to detail with specificity the facts presented to the APA regarding the regulatory process for the APA, the scientific findings presented to the APA regarding the use of Procellacor, the documents and arguments presented to the full ABA board, and then conducted a thorough legal analysis of the applicable laws, the regulations, the cases, and again, ultimately, unanimously reversing Supreme Court's determination. That's all a lot of words. What exactly does that mean? Snapshot of major points, and some of this comes directly from the Appellate Division's decision. The APA did not lack a rational basis or act in an arbitrary or capricious manner. The APA's determination was entitled to deference. Under the law, a agency's determination is entitled to deference because they're the ones that are, first and foremost, like this commission and you folks. This would be the deference that a court would have to give deference to the determination of the agency, especially, as the Appellate Division found, when it's the agency's own regulations that the agency is interpreting. So the court found that the agency properly did that. The information before the APA board contained scientific studies, reports, and research indicating that Procellacor is, quote, practically non-toxic, end quote, which is a term of art. It is a term of art in the EPA or DEC standards, saying it is the least, the bottom rung there, to nearly all animals, including fish and humans. The APA board properly considered, and here I want to quote the Appellate Division, the economic, social, and other benefits derived from the use of Procellacor, specifically that the total treatment proposal cost for the project will be slightly more than the cost of just 1 week of continuing the hand harvesting, and that the successful results of other treatment projects such as Minerva Lake demonstrated that the use of Procellacor was efficient and minimally harmful. One of the reasons that the Supreme Court annulled the permits was it found that the board didn't have enough information, that the staff, the APA staff before the board said it wasn't a balanced presentation. The Appellate Division talked to those issues as well. They specifically indicated that the board members were provided with, quote, an extensive meeting packet, including, among other things, the timely submitted public comments, various reports and findings from DEC and the Department of Health, a study of Procellacor use in Lake Minerva for 2020, and other information relating to the permit regulations, and also 2 late public comments from a limnologist and the waterkeeper. In other words, the Appellate Division found that the APA board had all of the documents in front of it necessary to make an informed decision. It further went on and indicated that, quote, we, the Appellate Division, are satisfied that the APA complied with its statutory and regulatory duties and was not otherwise required to present more alternatives in the permit review process. One of the things that was raised by the LGA and the petitioners in the case is that the APA did not properly follow its own procedures. It did not look at the different kinds of other harvesting, other alternatives. The appellate division said, yes, it did. The appellate division also indicated that Supreme Court went above and beyond its own jurisdiction when it, quote, substituted its own judgment for that of the APA in determining whether there was sufficient information. Particularly when it accorded great weight and judicial deference to the factual evaluations of the APA within its area of expertise. In other words, Supreme Court by law was required to give, as I indicated earlier, deference to the APA because it was the APA's regulations and the APA's determination. And it's the APA's area of expertise. The court went on to talk about this adjudicatory hearing. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, an adjudicatory hearing is exactly what it sounds like. It is a hearing held with testimony and witnesses. The APA has the ability to hold such a hearing if it deems it necessary under certain statutory requirements. One of the LGA and petitioners' main issues was that because there was so much opposition that the ABA was bound legally to hold an adjudicatory hearing. The appellate division said absolutely not. That was not correct. The APA was not bound to hold an adjudicatory hearing. The ABA properly followed its process. The court went on to say that while there were over 300 letters in opposition, they were, and I want to quote what they say, that they were form letters presented by a letter writing campaign by one of the petitioners and constituted less than 10% of its total membership, which alone is insufficient to warrant a hearing. Quote, the APA's determination to not hold an adjudicatory hearing was neither irrational nor arbitrary and capricious, and Supreme Court erred by substituting its judgment for that of the APA relating whether to hold an adjudicatory hearing. Specifically, the appellate division went on to say, we are satisfied that there is no indication in the record that the APA failed to make an informed decision based upon an independent appraisal of the evidence. Ultimately, in a 13-page opinion and order, and those of you in the legal community know that there is a difference between a memorandum in order, a decision in order, and an opinion in order, where an opinion in order is up to the highest. The appellate division went through 13 pages, and I do encourage all of you to read the decision. The appellate division judges unanimously went through in specific detail all of the scientific evidence presented before the APA and found, again unanimously by a 4-0 vote, that the APA's determination was proper, both substantively and procedurally. And at this point, the petition was dismissed in its entirety. So I wanted to let the board know that because there's a lot. It's a very, very dense decision. And those of you attorneys out there that have read it can recognize you have to read it probably 6 or 7 times to really pull out what it means. So at this point, Chairman, that's the at least the legal analysis and a snapshot of what this decision said. The appellate division decision is now, at least for this case, it is law of the case. This case is over. It is the fact that I know that there have been indications that the LGA may move to appeal this case. They do not have the immediate right to appeal this decision because it was unanimous. They have to ask permission from the appellate division or the Court of Appeals to appeal this decision to the Court of Appeals, and they have to demonstrate very significant reasons why the Court of Appeals would hear this. We have not seen a motion. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to do that, but that has been out there. I can tell you as of right now, there's been no motion filed to ask for permission to grieve, and many of those motions are not granted. So at this point, I'm happy to take questions from the commissioners, if you have any. Otherwise, that's really where we are, and I wanted to let all of you know kind of what the decision actually said, and to allow the public to know what the decision said, because I know unless you're a lawyer like me and actually like reading decisions, no one wants to read the decision. They want to read the summary, they want to read the buzzwords, they want to read the social media. That's what they want to read, and I wanted to present the actual language.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions? Yes,
Can
Dean.
the APA on its own do something?
Do something for what?
Well, can they reappeal?
Well, the APA won,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't appeal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody down that way? Anybody down this way? No. Okay. Thank you. I thought I knew all about it, and I guess maybe I didn't know everything. On the same note, we have a new.
No, wait. Aaron's got to. Aaron's going to recuse herself. Aaron's going to recuse herself.
No, she was going to do that down here.
Yeah, we just finished that. I just did this.
Yeah. Okay.
So she has to recuse herself. So let
Aaron, did you want to?
Yeah, so on the next agenda item, Aaron Burns, I represent the DEC on the board, and on the advice of DEC counsel, I need to recuse from voting on the next item on the agenda to avoid conflict of interest with DEC serving as both the regulator and the applicant for these projects. DEC has before it 2 pending aquatic vegetation control permit applications for the proposed projects. The APA board, including DEC's designee, is also considering the Park Commission's wetland permit applications. DEC, however, did prepare a statement, which the chairman will read.
Right.
Thank you.
And the record will show that you recused yourself on any conversation or vote on it. Speaking.
Wait till she leaves.
Oh. Well, you're strict.
I'm a pain. That's why you pay me the big bucks.
I'm going to sit next to you again. We have a new DEC Commissioner, Sean Mahar, to Basil Sego's place after his retirement. And Mr. Mahar called us recently and asked how he could help, be of assistance, and we said, well, we need DEC to explain their position on the use, etc., of Priscillacor. And he said, glad to, and he sent this up, and I'm simply going to read it in its entirety. New York State is a national leader in emerging contaminant response and pesticide regulation, and in particular, DEC conducts extensive science-based reviews of aquatic pesticide products prior to approval for use in New York State to ensure these products are fully protective of public health and the environment. The product must first be registered with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, we call it the EPA, before being submitted to DEC and the New York State Department of Health for a stringent review as mandated by law. DEC experts' review of Priscillacor's active ingredient, fluorophylbenzyl, with DOH and EPA have not been identified any concerns regarding the toxicity or persistence of the above-mentioned chemicals when used as labeled in the Priscillacor EC product. New York State approved its registration in 2019. EPA's review of current federally registered pesticides found, quote marks, no pesticide, active or inert ingredients with structures similar to prominent PFAs such as PFOs, PFOA, and Gen X, end of quote. DEC permitting decisions will continue to be guided by the state's stringent pesticide regulations and approved registrations. And all that simply means, folks, that DEC approves it and encourages it. And they are a state agency, as the Lake George Park Commission is a state agency, as the Department of Health is a state agency, the APA is a state agency, and you can rest assured that the governor's office in Albany also supports those positions of those state agencies. Now, let me find my agenda. We go back to it. We now have a resolution 2024-15. Listen to the resolution very carefully. don't jump up and yell and scream, because that's not even allowed in this room. But this is for acceptance of a licensed applicator. And Joe, do you have the resolution?
Yes. Resolution 2024-15, acceptance of the licensed applicator. Whereas the Lake George Park Commission is the New York State agency charged with the protection of Lake George, the safety of its users, and the management of its aquatic invasive species. And whereas the Commission is responsible for the control of invasive Eurasian milfoil and seeks to utilize all available best management strategies and approved tools to manage this invasive species. And whereas the Commission has advanced the regulatory permitting for 2 milfoil beds in Lake George using aquatic herbicide Priscillacor except over the past 3 years, and anticipates receipt of the required permit from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the Adirondack Park Agency. And whereas the Commission has followed New York State procurement practices and secured 2 quotes from the licensed New York State applicators to undertake this work, and now therefore be resolved, the Park Commission, the Lake George Park Commission hereby accepts the low quote from Solitude Lake Management at a cost of $18,698.69 to undertake Priscillacor treatment as permitted in Blair's Bay and Sheep Meadow Bay, aka Jeffrey Knight Bay, in June 2024, and that the Executive Director is authorized to enter into the agreement with Solitude to undertake this work. So moved as proposed.
That's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any conversation from the Commission on this motion? The Chair will ask for a roll call vote, and start down with you, Kathy. We don't have a secretary up close to do the roll call vote, so I'll do it.
Yes.
Yes?
Kathy Muscle, yes.
Yes.
I'm abstaining from this.
Dean, you're abstaining?
I vote yes.
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 Yes. John?
Yes.
And the Chair votes yes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, and 2 abstentions. Motion is carried. Resolution is carried, excuse me. Okay, now we get to the meat of the subject. Project Review Actions Report.
Project Review Actions Report 2024-16. Accept Project Review Actions Report. Whereas the Commission has received and reviewed the Project Review Action Report prepared by the staff and dated 5/21/2024, the Project Review Committee recommends acceptance of the Project Review Actions Report. Now therefore be resolved, the Commission directs that the Project Review Actions Report be incorporated in the minutes of the full Commission meeting. So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion from the Commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, that resolution is carried. Joe, are you the man du jour for the project?
Thank you, Chairman. Yep, we got a few on today's meeting, as we have to do this time of year as folks are gearing up. The first project on the project review agenda is from the Flamingo. They are an existing Class A marina that's authorized for 5 tour boats, charter boats, and they're also authorized to operate 4 tour boats. So they've applied to modify their tour boat permit to increase it to 5, which the facility is approved for. And Chris, the owner, is here to talk about the application.
Good morning, Chris Kozachka, 3914 Lakeshore Drive, Diamond Point, New York. We, on behalf of 80K Boat Tours, are looking to add a 5th boat to our operation under the permit and offer the same activities, tubing in water sports. The boat will be berthed at our docks at the Flamingo Resort.
Is there anybody have any questions for the applicant? No, you're not on the Commission yet.
an important question.
No, you're not on the, you got, look, here's the simple rules, okay? This is a meeting of the Lake George Park Commission. You're a spectator.
I'm accepting that. You said no, I'm accepting it. That's fine. I thought I could ask a question.
Public comments, you'll have a question. Sorry for the interruption, sir. Any other, is there any comments directly related to this application?
The dockage is okay for another vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe, did we have a site visit on this?
Was it last year we went there? This year we didn't go because it's just an exchange of one boat for another different type boat.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
All right, if you'd like, you can sit down and listen to us. Thank you. Do we have a resolution?
Yes. Resolution 2024-17, approved modified tour boat operation. Application number 1024, 5 zeros and a 5. Applicant is Chris Zernsky. Whereas the applicant has applied to modify an existing tour boat operation to aid a tour boat vessel, to add a tour boat vessel. Whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And whereas the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NY CRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purpose of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment. And whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed as required. And whereas the applicants have demonstrated that the activity complies with the tour boat requirements of 646-1.4D. And whereas the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second.
Motion made, motion second. Any further discussion on the commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, that resolution is passed.
So the next application on the agenda was from Lake George Suites. Mr. Tom Downs, who was representing that application, is unable to be at today's meeting, and he asked us to table it to a future meeting. So we're respecting his request. So that'll probably be on in June. So moving to the next agenda item, it is a new Class A marina in the town of Dresden by Dwayne Semkin. This is an existing Class B marina offering one berthing slip. Mr. Semkin has requested a Class A marina offering 2 seasonal berthing slips. I know he's here in the crowd. I'd like him to introduce himself and talk about the project for a minute.
Good morning. I'm Dwayne Semkin from 1013 County Route 6, Felix Landing, Dresden. And I'm requesting a seasonal rental of 2 boat slips on the existing I-dock, which is depicted on the survey that I submitted on the north side of the property. One is on the west side, one is on the east side. They both can accommodate about a 21-foot boat for seasonal rentals. Any questions?
Commissioners have a question of the applicant?
No. Did you see, Joe, did you go on that?
We didn't. We've been out there a couple of years ago, and this is a pretty straightforward. We didn't go this year, but it's straightforward. The I-dock is sitting out there. It's meets all the regulations.
I walk by that dock almost every day on my 3-mile walks, and it's good.
Yeah.
No problem.
And we have no other comments from the public, Joe?
There was one comment in support.
In support.
But no other comments.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We have
Resolution.
a resolution.
2024-19. Approved new Class A marina. Application numbers M24504. Applicant is Dwayne Smith. Whereas the applicant has applied for a new Class A marina offering 2 seasonal berthing spaces, and whereas the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and whereas the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 NY CRR 617.5, as lead agency for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment. And whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed as required. And whereas the applicant has demonstrated that the facility complies with the Class A marina requirements of 6 NY CRR 646-1.2b, and whereas the Commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Kath?
No.
That's our sorry.
You happy?
We're all set? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, that resolution's passed. And the next one.
So the next application is an application for a dock variance in the Grove, which is on Cotton Point. This is an association with 20 members. The property is originally authorized for 2 U-shaped docks that are 70 feet long, and they're also authorized for 10 moorings. Currently, they have docks that range roughly from 91 to 98 feet long. They've requested variance to maintain the dock length and trade off some of the moorings, going from 10 moorings to 4 moorings. It should be noted that they did sign an order on consent agreeing to bring the docks into compliance should the variance not be granted. They've already made some efforts to bring the docks within the 20-foot sideline setbacks as required. I noticed Craig Rivers is here. I also saw Jeff Anthony. So whoever would like to represent the application, I invite you to approach them.
Didn't I see you on Glen Street yesterday?
You did. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Michael Borges. I'm the attorney for the applicant. With me is Jeff Anthony from Studio A. When the applicant came to me last summer when the enforcement action began, my first bit of advice was to seek out educated, competent assistance, and Jeff fills that role. He also leaned upon Van Dusen and Steves, and together they put together a very exhaustive, factual-based study of what they have there at the Grove. In Basin Bay, in that section of it, it's very, very shallow water. And the Grove has been there for a long, long time. As we were talking with Mr. Rivers earlier, it's been in his family for over 85 years. So these boaters, these campers that evolved into these camps, for those of you that visited recently, you saw they're just little camps. They're not the camps that we see being built on other properties today. These are very much the locals' access to the lake and access to their boat. So the camp owner is entitled to 1 dock space. And that's what we're seeking to retain here. They're trying to hold on to their access to the lake and their dock spaces. So to bring everything into compliance as much as possible and minimize the variance requests that we're here for today, the applicant installed the docks within the 20-foot setback on both sides, reoriented everything with Jeff's help, and they are asking for a variance for the dock length. As you saw in the submission package, there was a calculation made for the number of safe berthings, and we're seeking to retain the 22 safe berthings that we feel are necessary. We're not going to add extra boats. It's still going to be 1 boat per camp. But you have visitors and you have different length boats from different owners, and that can vary over time. So we want to have that flexibility retained. But as a trade-off, they're willing to give up all of their berthings. And as you know, the berthings extend further out into the lake. It's more of a navigability hazard. And that's really what we're here talking about today, is making sure that These boaters can have safe berthings with the shallow depth. It is important for their navigability too, and that's why we're seeking the variances that are set forth in the application. Are there any questions that we can address?
Any questions?
I have a question, Mike. Did you mean give up the berthings or give up the moorings?
The moorings. I'm sorry, the moorings. Give us the moorings.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
I apologize.
And that's the all moorings?
We are willing to go that far. It's a great sacrifice, of course, for those who might have a sailboat with a deep keel. But in the responses to Mr. Thuman that we most recently submitted, we did state that we're willing to give up all the moorings.
Okay. Yeah, we visited the site and talked to a couple of the owners there, or participants, and I think this is a good compromise with the staff and with the people, the applicants, to keep the docks to the same length, but give up the moorings.
Is this the first property you come to on
Yes.
that road where the road bends and you're right there?
Yeah.
It's been there for 100 years. Yeah.
We've been there, yeah.
Right.
Not quite that long.
Is there anyone else to address that application?
I've got a quick question. One of the things we like to do with associations to make sure we don't run into the same issue years down the road, A, is to make sure that the membership is static, and it seems like that's the case, and Jeff noted that in response. And the other thing is to make sure there's some kind of cap on boat length, right? If everybody comes out with a 35-foot long boat, we're going to have issues again. We're going to find ourselves in the same situation. I noticed Jeff used a 24-foot length maximum in determining, the amount of appropriate berthing spaces. Occasionally, we will put a special condition on an approval like that, where there's not already a limit somewhere in the bylaws or anything else. So I just wanted to see if you guys would be amenable to that. Are there any members that wouldn't meet that 24-foot max at this time?
I think there are some pre-existing ones that may exceed.
Mr. Rivers has given us the thumbs up that they could comply with that.
I think on a going forward basis, certainly, that can be for any after the variance is granted, anything coming in would have to meet that requirement.
Yeah, I guess what we wouldn't want to do is put a 24 on, put a limit at 24, find out there's someone with a 26 and create an issue, but he's shaking his head, no, that should be okay. I appreciate the input. So if you're amenable to that, that's for your consideration.
Is that something that needs to be written into the resolution?
Yeah, if Joe wants to read that as proposed condition.
We'll do that as a condition in the resolution.
All right, if you're prepared to do that and you have a resolution,
Resolution 2024-20, approved dock variance. Application number is DWN 244052. Applicant is the Grove. Whereas the applicant has applied for a variance to lengthen existing docks on site, the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And whereas the Commission has made a determination pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-3.6 and the State Environmental Quality Review Act 6 NY CRR 617.5 that the project is a Type 2 action, does not require further review of potential impacts pursuant to this act. And whereas the action is a minor project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, public notice has been published and distributed consistent with the regulations, and the applicant has requested a variance from 646-1.1C2I. No dock shall be placed more than 40 feet from the mean low water mark. Whereas the applicant has demonstrated the project has demonstrated that strict conformance with the regulations will cause unnecessary hardship due to unique, peculiar circumstances which impose substantial financial, technical, and safety burdens. And whereas the Commission finds that there is no reasonable possibility that the applicant's property, or if no property is involved, the continuation of the applicant's business, enterprise, and use or activity will bring a reasonable return following conformance with the regulations. Whereas the Commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual impact, cultural or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the request for a variance and approves the above application with the following conditions: that no watercraft shall exceed 24 feet in length.
And also no moorings as well.
And no moorings. I thought that was part of the already. Okay, no moorings on the property.
Did we necessarily include any current boat that exceeds 24 feet?
No, I think that was already.
It sounds like that's not an issue for Mr.
It's not an issue.
Not an issue.
Motion's made.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion from the commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none. That resolution is passed. Thank you. Next.
The next application is for a dock modification and a new mooring by Gary Zervis, Cotton Point. This was an application that came before the board a couple years ago as part of a larger subdivision and group of boathouses and docks. The commission reviewed an application that includes 7 boathouses with 2 slips inside each boathouse. That was subsequently reduced, and the commission ultimately approved 4 docks, 1 for each dock in this 4-lot residential subdivision, 2 boathouses, and 2 L-shaped docks. Last year, we had one of the applicants that was authorized for one of the boathouses come in with new mean low watermark measurements, which allowed the dock to extend up to 70 feet offshore. He also requested a slightly larger sun deck platform, and the commission approved that. That was Michael Sears' application, if you remember that. Mr. Zervis is the neighbor to Mr. Sear. He's also authorized for a 50-foot long U-shaped dock, single slip inside, and a sun deck. He has brought Van Dusen and Steves on site. They have also measured the mean low watermark and found it further offshore, which allows up to a 70-foot long dock. So he's applying for modification for that 70-foot long dock and that larger sun deck, pretty much mirroring what Mr. Sear has requested. Due to the public comments received in the past, and we have more comments again, and the fact that you guys reviewed this in the past is why it's before you today. This application does not require any variances, which is important to point out. But again, looking at the normal impacts to the neighborhood and that sort of thing. So with that said, I invite Gary Zervis to the mic to talk a little bit more about the project.
Morning, Gary Zervis, 12 Basin Bit Shore. Joe said it well. Yeah, we're just looking to add 20 feet due to the water depth. Boathouse is within regulations. Everything's within regulations. I think you all know I'm a dock builder, so it's a weird situation for me. Going through rules that I know should be okay, and basically, do you have any questions?
Anybody from the commission have any further questions of the applicant?
No, we visited the site as always, and as Joe indicated, he summarized it pretty well.
I think we've all been there.
A few times.
Yes.
Yes, we have. Is there anyone else to speak to this application?
I know there's at least one commenter.
Oh, okay. Would you take a seat and we'll let the gentleman speak? Please.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Brozna, B-R-O-Z-Y-N-A. I'm president of South Beach Association. And I'd like to thank the staff for keeping us on the loop on all this. Just quickly, South Beach Association, we have 31 members, established in 1946. We're just down the road and use Cotton Point Road, as well as about 80 residences, which are well populated during the summer. The South Beach Association, we're always concerned about environmental impacts, boat density on Basin Bay, but also road safety on Cotton Point Road, because that's the only way in and out. Our board, our Docks and Harbor Committee, we've looked at the application, don't have a problem with the covered U-shaped dock that Mr. Zervis is applying for, virtually the same as what you approved for Mr. Sear. No problem with the moorings, no problem with the length of the dock to 70 feet because of the adjusted mean low watermark calculations. Our concern is, and hopefully the board can be a little bit creative, is over traffic safety. Mr. Sear, who was approved in 2023 for his project construction, was done this spring, and most of the work was done by barge. A couple of the support vehicles were parked, basically blocking one lane of a very narrow town road. And you have a unique layout. You have about 4 feet of land along the shore. You have the Cotton Point Road and then wetlands. So it's a very, very unique situation. And I understand that the parking and some of these other things are normally, they are the ongoing concern of the town. But the board looks at health, safety, and welfare issues. And we're asking that you also give some consideration, eventually what you approve gets built. So what happens to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood during the construction? And with the Sear project, it's reasonable. Those trucks have to be somewhere. Okay, it's reasonable. They have to be somewhere. And I drove in and out of there 5 or 6 times to check my place during the spring, and no problem because there's no traffic in the off season. During the summer season, though, there's about 80 residences further down, and they're well populated with people and visitors and people coming in and out. And I will tell you, I'm in my early 70s. I'm still younger than half of the members at South Beach Association. So there's a lot of old people down there with little great grandchildren, and there's dogs, pedestrian traffic, and people driving in and out. The road is very narrow. So if there's any way either the construction could be done during the off season, when there's no problem with traffic, or if a flag person could be assigned to direct traffic during the summer season, if that's when the construction takes place, that would really benefit the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And again, I recognize the road's the responsibility of the Bolton Police. And I would guess they would probably not want to hear complaints all the time about all this and having ongoing discussions about all that. So if there's a reasonable way, if you could, we would respectfully petition that if you could address the parking issue and the road safety issue in your resolution, either limit the construction to off-season or request that a flag person direct traffic if construction's done during the season. That would greatly help matters, health, safety, and welfare, and I think avoid accidents and avoid a lot of annoyance for everybody. That's our perspective. And just quickly, that area of Cotton Point Road is a no parking zone, and this goes back to 2008. If you look at the September and October minutes from 2008 for the town board, there were concerns about traffic, and this is years ahead of the Caruso subdivision. So there were concerns back in 2008. That's the reason that strip is a no parking zone. So if there's something you can do, it's a little bit creative, but look, this is a very, very unique layout with the strip of land and the road and the wetlands and everything. So I thank you very much.
Can I just leap in for a second? Isn't this kind of a situation where the organization should be seeing that those things are appropriate?
The organization?
Yeah, your organization.
Well, we're a homeowners organization.
Right.
It's an interesting point, because I remember when the project first started and we were up there a few times walking the road and whatnot, and that was a consideration that there would be there was no parking allowed on the roadway.
That's right.
And that there will with the 4 new homes, there will be no parking on the roadway. And I can remember getting in my car thinking, how the hell are we going to enforce this one? And it's going to be a toughie. But you're exactly right. I think it's holding on us to require the homeowner, who requires his contractor to do something to provide the safety of the people that are...
Thinking out loud, and to your point, Chairman, the basic way to address that was to ensure that there was a CO for each home before the dock was built. That way we knew there was a restroom and a parking spot and all that kind of stuff. And typically with dock construction, the contractor would be parked in the driveway, but here we have a little bit of distance. I wonder, Gary, is it possible to simply, have the crew park at each individual residence, and then whoever draws the short straw that morning has to walk the quarter mile down to the site?
So, basically when we built Sears Dock, it was right after it got approved, and I believe that was in June, busy time. The docks are easy to bring everything in for the barge, so we're basically non-existing on the street. We chose to build the boathouse as soon as it got permitted, which was early spring, which basically there was nobody around. The boathouses are very unique because there's a ton of material to them, so they need the trucks. They got to have access, for them to walk around over to one of the houses would have been nearly impossible. But we did address that by buying street legal golf carts, and we did run the guys down the street legal golf carts as much as we could. So that we did as residents, and it's just going to be a small, it's going to be a small fleet. We run with this all over the lake. Every situation we build is very unique. We try to get very respectful. All our trucks are DOT registered. We put lights on it, we put blinkers on it, we did have markers on it, and we respected all the traffic. We moved over as far as we could. Mostly everybody was really, really good to us during the whole project. Some people were not so good, but there was building going on in the community as well, so there was big trucks and trailers and everything. They were able to pass through no problem. Oversized dump trucks. There was excavators going by. Nobody once got stopped. The septic trucks got by. All police got involved, came down, so we were doing everything 100% correct. They were actually going to send them the complaints because there really was nothing to complain about. So, as a contractor, you got to do what you got to do. It's going to be one more situation after this, I believe, and it's going to be non-existing as far as any construction, congestion is. It'll just basically be homeowner traffic, and we address that by buying legalized golf carts for the road.
Yeah, well, I would agree to an extent. The commission has built in appropriate safeguards in your 2021 ruling, even with the Caruso application, and those are almost universally followed. Again, the concern is during the construction and the timing because of the higher traffic situation during the summer. Again, I drove in and out of there this spring, no problem. I only had to wait in line once.
Exactly.
I'm retired. I can wait 20, 30 seconds.
That's why we chose to do the boathouse.
Yes,
in the spring.
That's right. And if the project could be done in the spring or in the fall, spring, outside of the regular busy season, or if there's a person directing traffic, then I think that would keep everybody safe, would benefit everybody, and then there'd be less complaints to Captain Galante, and then he doesn't have to come down as often. And I can't speak for everybody, the other 80 homeowners down there, but at least I can tell, if we can get this resolved, I can tell the 30 members of South Beach Association, look, it's been handled, so, and if you got a problem, talk to me, so I can, instead of bothering
Well,
the
obviously,
police and you
the dock
guys.
is going to be built, I was due in June, so we'll do everything in our power. Like I said, the dock isn't a problem. It's pretty much all by barge, The whole house probably won't be constructed again until the following spring, exactly like how we did Sears.
Okay, so you anticipate that your project, the Service project, would be done in the spring, same timing as the Sears project?
The dock will go up first, which will be before 4th of July. And then the boathouse, where you were seeing the traffic, will be in the spring. Early spring is possible.
Well, whatever can be done, I've had my say, and
Are you comfortable?
I'm bogarting the conversation.
Are you comfortable with the conversation?
Yes, it's a constructive conversation.
That's the important part.
Most of the work's done by barge. It's reasonable. Those support vehicles have to be somewhere. They can't be a half mile away or 3/8 of a mile away. So we recognize all that. But if it's the timing, and it sounds like in this case, that the timing is going to be, I don't know if that needs to be in the resolution or not, but the timing of construction would be the same as SEER, and we should be okay with that.
It's basically going to take us 3 days worth of time. So, I mean, we'll try to pick a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like we did for Mike. Obviously, we're not going to try to put it during the weekend, business time. I can't tell you exactly what, because I don't know 100% whether that's, through fabrication, but it's going to be within the next 2 days.
And the other aspects of the design, the dock length at 70 feet, the mooring, we looked at it, no problem. So I'm done.
Good to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. You have a resolution, Joe?
Resolution 2024-21, approved dock modification and mooring. Application number is DWM 244027. Applicant is Gary Seaver. Whereas the applicant has applied for a dock modification and mooring, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record. And the Commission has made a determination pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-3.6 and the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NYCRR 617.5 that the project is a Type 2 action and does not require further review of potential impacts pursuant to this act. And whereas the action is a minor project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 645-5.3, and the public notice has been published and distributed consistent with the regulations, and the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or the welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the request for a variance and approves the above application as proposed.
Sorry, that's my mistake. It does not require a variance.
Pardon?
I put variance in the resolution by accident. Sorry about that. So strike variance from your resolution.
Oh, okay.
We have a motion made. We have a second?
Second.
Second. Any additional comments from the Commission? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? That's covered. Now we've got our final dock modification.
That's correct. So same neighborhood, same subdivision, same original approval. I mentioned earlier there were 2 U-shaped docks with sun decks that were approved and 2 L-shaped docks. One of the neighbors with the L-shaped dock, Mr. Tim Prusha, has requested a modification, again, to mirror Mr. Sears' dock, to go from a 50-foot-long L-shaped dock to a 70-foot-long U-shaped dock with a sun deck, essentially the same as what Mr. Sears just requested. We received the same type of public comments concerning impacts and intensity and use of the road. And I know Mr. Prusha is here, so I'd like him to approach the mic and talk about the application for a minute.
Good morning. Again, I'm Kim Prusha, 10 Basin Shore Lane. I know there's been a lot going on with this property in the docks. It's always been a dream of, to have a place in Lake George. We've been coming here for 27 years. Originally, when we were thinking about buying this, we thought it couldn't happen. Again, we thought, they proposed a boathouse in a covered dock. Obviously, that's not something that we need or want or can even afford. The L-shape came upon a time in my life where I was having a difficult time with my father and lost him during that time when all this went on. So I really didn't know what was going on as far as the L-shape compared to what, more important things going on in my life. Now being up here and building a house, obviously a boathouse would be enjoyable to pull your dock in to have it covered. We're a very small family. I know there's some public comments about partying and things like that. Again, we've been coming here for 27 years. Just looking, again, not for two docks or anything more than really what anybody else would want in their house.
This is identical to the project we just passed?
Yeah, I think there's a part near shore that might be flip-flop, but yeah, they're essentially the same dimensions.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Is there anyone else to speak to this project?
The gentleman to our left.
The same conversation? Are you the contractor on the? Are you going to be building the dock? So all the responsibility really is on your shoulders to keep the neighbors. Well, you know, it ain't going to be on mine. You know. I mean,
Yeah, we're just, again, to repeat our concerns.
I feel the same way.
With the timing.
It's obviously, it's not something that I can afford everything at one time. Like Gary said, just a place to put my boats so my family can actually be on the water is fine. I have no problem waiting for a more suitable time to move forward with the boat.
Yeah, as much work off-season as possible, that would be great.
Okay.
And would enhance safety.
And then this whole project's over with, correct? This is a self-finishing project, Joe?
There's one more L-shaped dock that might want to be a boathouse when it grows up.
Oh, so this
It might never seem satisfying.
this would be 3 out of the 4. Yeah. Huh? You got one more visit when next time it comes. We'll let you know.
Joe, if I messed up this next resolution, please take that to
Joe, do you have a resolution for us?
Resolution 2024-22, approve dock modification and mooring. Application number DWM 244029. Applicant is Tim. Whereas the applicant has applied for a dock modification and a mooring, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and the Commission has made a determination pursuant to 6 NY CR 645-3.6 and the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NY CRR 617.5 that the project is a Type 2 action, does not require further review of potential impacts pursuant to this act, and the action is a minor project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, and a public notice has been published and distributed consistent with the regulations. And whereas the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or the welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on a neighborhood or the park. Now, therefore, be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby approves the above request approves the above application as presented. So moved.
Motion made. Motion seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, it is carried. Now we come to Law Enforcement Committee report. We have a Law Enforcement Committee meeting this morning at 9 a.m. Okay, back to you.
We met at 9 o'clock this morning. We have 3 new motors installed on our boats. All of our boats are now operational. Their equipment's there. And we have 2 new GPS units. We have 2 new radar units, which helps us on patrolling the lake at night. I don't know how many of you witnessed the south end of the lake the last 3 weeks, but if you did, you would see we had down there 19 patrol boats parked at the docks down at the south end of the lake. We had been conducting classes for the last 3 weeks, and the classes had 40 people per class for the 2 classes, and in the 3rd class, it was for state police officers, and there were 30 of them. I'm happy to report that we've had no drownings this year, which is wonderful. So far, we're keeping our fingers crossed. And I might want to say, anybody comes January 1, 2025, anyone driving a boat, a power boat on Lake George, must have the boater certificate. Anyone. This is not a Lake George thing. This is a New York State law. So anybody driving a boat on any body of water in New York must have passed the certificate course. And we've offered classes for this. I don't know if we're going to have any more coming up soon or not. Yeah. Okay. And I know some local fire departments are conducting them 2-day classes, and you can do it online. You can take this class online. But come January 1, whatever your age, if you're driving a boat, you need to have this license. I have a resolution I'd like to read, Mr. Chairman.
Please do.
This is Resolution 2024-23. The Law Enforcement Committee met on May 28th, 2024 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and Commission's law enforcement program. Whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive sessions. Whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported the results of this meeting for the full commission meeting. Whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this Law Enforcement Committee report. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement report. So moved.
Second. Motion made, motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no nays, it's carried. Now we come to...
You want a break?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to ask how many you want to speak. We want to take a lunch break. Copy that break.
Mr. Chairman, can you give us a short break?
I think we should take just a 5-minute bathroom break.
Okay, let me get a quick read of the room here. You're all here for one single, most of you are here for a single project. How many, a show of hand please, how many intend to speak? All right, so that's 10, 15, and that'll take quite a while. So why don't we take a 15-minute break, and we'll come back at 5 after 12. We'll review the rules of speaking and see you then. Hey.
This is going to be the...
We don't need that, Dave.
No, under open meeting.
Right, please, yes. Your signature. Did you read that letter?
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up now.
You can bring it up?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to read it.
Pardon?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask if the author's here.
No, thank you.
Huh?
You don't want him there, Justin.
My jacket.
I just be careful.
You've been talking about height.
Where did you get into that?
I don't know.
Okay. Are we all almost comfortable? Is it getting cold in here? Or is it just me?
Well, the air conditioner's working.
I ended up in the emergency room with my wife a week or two ago, and we spent 6 hours in a refrigerator that could have held beef fresh. It just froze that night. We are here to continue and to finish up the agenda, which is public comments. The Park Commission has always allowed public comments at all of our meetings, and we've had a few occasions over the years I've been on. I've been on since 2006, believe it or not, where you have a group that is focused on one laser target. So what don't we want to do? We don't want to get up and repeat what we just heard. We're going to have a 3 to 4 minute time schedule. Speak your piece quickly directly. And because we're talking about science, why don't you tell me what your science says? Tell me who you are and where you're located. Remember that the state of New York requires us to videotape this, so whatever you say is going to be held in perpetuity in the minutes of this meeting, so don't embarrass your grandchildren. And with that, I'd like to tell you that most of you have not been mean. A few of you have done a couple things that shouldn't have been done. And this just sticks out. This is from social media. A person said, and I'm going to read it, how else can you do it? I'll show up and physically defend the lake before I let that happen. Can't stop fighting. They're trying to assault us with a deadly chemical weapon, so self-defense is justified. Honestly, I want to punch that guy Dave at the Lake George Water Commission in the face. Now, you're giggling. I ain't.
I'm not laughing either.
Are you the person that wrote this?
That's me.
Oh, okay.
I'll control myself today, but that's my honest opinion online. I can do that.
Okay. I could, if I wanted, to have a guy go and put cuffs on you too, but I'm not going to. Well, if you're proud of that, that's good. So you all folks know about that, and you're here to, I presume, complain about Priscilla-Cor. Now, let me just check my notes I wrote over the weekend. What's the tree, David, that the woody?
The hemlock woolly.
Hemlock woolly. You know what they're going to do with that? They're going to put a poison into those trees. They're all along the lake. I wonder if any of us are protesting that, and why. And if we're not, why aren't we? I'm sorry?
Just look them up.
I don't hear you.
Public property is on the
All right. Let's go. We're going to go by... Nope, time out. I choose. My turn. We're going to do it by rows, and we're going to start with the front row. You seem to be the prominent group, and we're going to start there. You can get up and speak for 3 minutes. Justin's going to say time. When you say time, I'm going to give you a wrap. So you get to be the first speaker. And we're going to, before you start, clock hasn't started yet, we're going to go across by each row and multiply yourselves by the 3 to 4 minutes, a minute in between for walking, and that's how long we'll be here. Okay, go ahead. Who are you?
Hi, I am Brittany Ross. I'm from Lake George. I have a name online called The Health Unprofessional. I make videos. I posted an hour-long video last night getting into the science if you really want to see what I think. I'll just be short and sweet, but I'll let you guys know.
You need to be. You only have 2.5 minutes left.
So I want to let you guys know. I want you to inform you about something called regulatory capture, because you keep talking about the EPA and the APA as if their science is legit, when I think it's fake paid science. Regulatory capture, you can look that up. It's a real phenomenon. I'm not the one that came up with it. Other people have been aware that there's corruption going on because these rich pharmaceutical companies and chemical companies can pay off whoever they want. They can pay scientists, they can pay off politicians, and regulatory bodies can be captured. That's not me, that's somebody else. So besides that, because when you look, the reason why I think regulatory capture is happening, it's in that hour-long video. When you look into the science doesn't make sense. I actually have some science that I'll give you each one of these pieces of paper, because when you look at this herbicide, there's 3 different poisons in the active ingredient. I looked up each one. One of the poisons is listed on top on PubChem, a reputable website. It's not just any website. It's a .org, like PubChem website. So I'll give you this information. One of the ingredients is known, it says right here, very toxic to aquatic life with long-lasting effects. Warning, hazardous to the aquatic environment, long-term hazard. And it's listed as an irritant and an environmental hazard. This is the exact same ingredient that's right in here, but it's confusing because there's 3 of them. So you have to really look at it, and it's slightly different. The form is slightly different, but I understand that there are different forms of nutrients. They can be toxic or healthy, and I don't care that these people are saying it's a different form and it's healthy, because I know it's synthetic out of a laboratory, and to me, that's poisonous. I'm fully aware. And also I want to point out, this is a form of fluoride. If you look into the science, fluorine is toxic. It's not a nutrient. You don't need it in your body. It's toxic, especially to children, which this says keep out of reach of children on the Priscilla-Cor website. So think about your kids too in the lake. Also, I can rip into their science I did in the video, but if you want me to do it right now, they're saying like, oh, it's such a small amount, it's insignificant. I say it's such a small amount of poison and it's so poisonous, all they need is a little bit to initially kill all the milfoil, which why'd you waste our time watching that? We're not saying initially it's not going to kill all of the milfoil. We know it will, but it does create resistance. That's what eventually. These people who say that they've done science in their lake for 1 or 2 years, that's not science. Science is like 10 years, maybe 20 years, okay? You didn't study the microbiome. That's where it's going to start, is shifting the microbiome, and then it's going to get to different organisms, invertebrates, fish, birds. Then, you know, it's going to start small and ripple out. I don't think they've done a study of their microbiome to begin with, so how are you even going to do a controlled experiment now with those?
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. No?
Don't run
Next.
out of it. Thank you.
No? Next.
Upside down.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Hildegrandt, and my family owns a 10-acre peninsula located just south of the where the Priscilla core is intended to be put in, right near the Jelliff Knight Bay. My surname is Knight. So my concern, and I just want to make this comment, is we pump water for drinking and for gardening and for, you know, swimming and whatnot directly out of the lake, right where this Priscilla core is going to be going in. So my big concern is obviously drinking safety, and then safety long-term for plants and animals and fish and so forth. So my biggest concern is the safety of the water, the drinkability of the water, short-term and long-term. So if this does go through, I just need to know, and this question may have been answered at a meeting I wasn't at, but what's the timing if I were to, it's going in right where my pumps are. So I need to know, for the safety of myself and my family and my tenants, because I lease out 4 houses on this property all summer long, what is the timing of any sort of safety, and what are my concerns long-term and short-term?
Okay, thank you.
So that's my comment.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you can give me an answer or if I need to go somewhere.
If you would contact us, we'd be glad to discuss that with you.
Okay. All right, good.
We're here for you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Vermont?
Good morning, everybody. I have a few questions I need some answers with as I talk. How many years has it been since you handpicked the milfoil over on the 2 sites?
Blair's Bay is 2016, and the night you left here, Sleep Meadow, I think, was 2014.
All right. Is there any reason why you quit picking the milfoil out of the Hague boat launch? You stopped. What's the reason?
Because our diver said that it was continuing to recur every time they went in there, and it was becoming a waste of time.
So it would have been the same thing you would have picked the other sites. It would have reoccurred again. So you just stopped for some odd reason. Is that correct?
We stopped. Walt Linder and I agreed that we were spending good money after bad in Blair's Bay. It's actually in the 2016 report from the contractor himself, said we have no idea what to do here anymore. Every time we come, it comes back.
Okay, well, with many Lake George waters and towns, Ty, Dresden, Hague, with his court motion again, and 4,800 signatures against Priscilla COR, why does the Lake George Park Commission not listen to Lake George folks? We find that very odd. And with the findings by the Minnesota Department of Agriculture that ingredients PFAS in Priscilla core causes cancer, why does the Lake George Park Commission want to continue to use this toxic chemical? Can somebody explain that? Anybody have an answer?
This is a comment period. Not a
no,
question.
I'm just asking a question.
This is not a public hearing. This is a comment.
But that was my comment.
Well,
so
now you're
he
on-
answered a question
now
before. Now
you're-
you can't answer that?
now
I
you're
find
on
that
the record.
extremely odd. Some you can answer if you want to, and other ones you don't want to answer.
Are you yelling at me?
No, I'm not yelling. I'm just making a statement, Ken. I thought somebody could maybe answer that. I guess not. Why, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Lucinda Bobsar. I live in Hewlett's on Bluffhead Road. I've been coming to the lake since I was 5 years old, and I am against putting Procelicor in the lake. I feel that milfoil is not a crisis. I actually swim in the Sheep Meadow or the Jellifnite Bay every summer. There's no problems recreating there. I take my boat and jet ski there all the time. I know that it hasn't been hand harvested, for 8 or 9 years, and it's not an issue at all. I feel the risks of putting a chemical in a lake like Lake George are too high. I do appreciate that the 3 other lakes that came today and spoke, that this chemical was helpful for them, but those 3 lakes were extremely smaller than Lake George and shallower. The average depth of Lake George is 75 feet, and it's 32 miles long, and there's the currents in Lake George are significant, and I don't think Procelicor is the right chemical for Lake George. It's meant to be used in small lakes without a lot of currents, and that's not Lake George. I also want to point out that the New York Times, there was an article today about lawsuits that are coming because of PFAS chemicals, so I think that's a risk. By putting a PFAS chemical into Lake George, there's going to be a risk of lawsuits. Just thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Bear, and I'm from Hague, New York. My concern is that there doesn't seem to be enough long-term information on the health effects. You have a woman in Ticonderoga who swims every day, and she's a polio survivor. And you're going to put a chemical like this into a lake where people swim all the time. They go to the lake to get relief from physical ailments, and you don't have enough information about the effects on it, and I don't think it should be pursued. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Peter Menzies. I'm the chair of the Lake George Association, and I live on Northwest Bay. I've said this over and over again. Lake George is not the place to undertake a reckless experiment, and this is shaping up to be a reckless experiment. Procelicor is not the solution to managing milfoil. A comprehensive and thoughtful plan is. The LGA submitted an offer to the Park Commission this morning to pay for hand harvesting in the 2 test bays. That offer was ignored. There's a pattern here. The Park Commission is ignoring the people. The Park Commission is ignoring the LGA's scientific rationale for its opposition to Procelicor. And the Lake George Park Commission is ignoring an opportunity to do the right thing. New York State's backed itself into a corner, and now it's time for Governor Hochul to stop this madness. She can turn this around. It doesn't appear as though the Lake George Park Commission can or will. Today we're here to oppose this reckless attempt to manage a crisis that isn't a crisis. I look forward to hearing more comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning. My name is Dr. Carol Collins. I am part of the science behind what all the people in this room believe is a bad idea to use Procelicor in Lake George. Since you haven't had a public hearing, many of us are anxious to share with you our concerns, but this is not an opportunity we have been given. I have to comment on a couple of things. That is the scope of what this project is. Apparently there's a $19,000 appropriation that's been made. What will that include? I'll probably get silence, but I most likely expect no before sampling of water quality, of the plant and animal populations, including dry weight, of the sediment where we know the chemical is going to adhere and transform. We know it will kill off the bacteria in the sediments. And all of this is part of the science, and I've investigated them very carefully. Now, Ken In the past, you've called me a citizen scientist, and I think we've corrected that finally.
I called you a citizen?
You did.
I don't recall that.
Well, I actually have it on a sheet of paper. You said in an email, but that's okay. And you said I was a very passionate citizen scientist. Well, behind that is years and years of research, peer-reviewed journal articles, advising organizations like the EPA and the DEC so that we don't get into situations just like we're in right now. I feel very worried about the direction of the Park Commission right now because this is not a test. It's not an experiment. You will not learn one thing from this adventure. That's about the only word I can call it. This chemical is likely a PFA. Certainly many places have considered it as such. And to move forward right now, it's just unthinkable to so many of us. The EPA has already said that the toxin, which it is, we all know that, it wouldn't get an EPA label if it wasn't a toxin. The toxin will kill off male and female mycetes, just to name one organism. And it's said, because of the results of these tests, the implication for the rest of the lake, the other components of the lake, is biologically significant. Now, this is like a warning for the toxicity of this organism, of this Procellochlor. So this is all the science you want to hear, right? Does anybody else want to hear any more science? I apologize.
Time out. We got rules.
I know.
So, no, hang on. Hang on. No, let's just curl it right around to the end.
I beg you, Ken, to withdraw this
when the last person speaks,
terrible idea.
When the last person speaks, you
and
can back
protect
up
the
and
lake like you're supposed to do. That's all. And
I made you an offer. I made you an offer.
Well, you made me an offer?
Yes. If you'd like more time, come back at the end.
Oh, okay. I'd like to come back in an eon and see what's happened to the lake.
A little different perspective. My name is Patty Nichols. I don't have property on Lake George, but I do have property on a small 500-acre lake in Vermont, 5 minutes north of Bombazine, and we all know what's happened at Bombazine. I've been there 6 years, and I am a biologist and an environmentalist. I have a degree in natural resources and science from the University of Vermont, a master's degree, and so I pay attention to every life form that's on my little bay of my lake. For the last 6 years. We treated with Procellochlor 2 years ago, and I noticed no difference at all in any life form that's there the year after. The year after we treated with Procellochlor, we had two loons nesting right across from my house. They raised successfully 3 chicks. We had a bald eagle nearby, successfully raised 1 baby. We have not seen any bad things at all. This is the 2nd year since our treatment, and on Tuesday next week, they're going to treat again a different section of my little bay. And we had a property owners meeting on Sunday, and everybody unanimously agreed to it. So we have used it successfully. I have seen, because I do understand animals a lot, I have seen no difference at all in any life of frogs, fish, nothing, since our use 2 years of Procellochlor. So,
thank you. Now, second row. No, I can't see everybody. So, if I don't mean to be a pointer, but I'm pointing, and we're up to you.
Hi, I'm the supervisor of Dresden and Paul Ferguson,
And I just want to say, you know what, I can agree. You know what, I do a lot of resolutions each month. I'm also I sit on the county board. So I can accept your resolution. With an amendment, I wish you would do an amendment to it. If you would take those 2 bays out of there, your resolution 2024-16, take off Sheep Meadow Bay, take off Blair's Bay, and put Lake George in the place, or all the bays of Lake George in its place, and start down here in the southern section. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Nowitzki, Lake George Waterkeeper. I'm going to talk a bit about the balanced review, which I feel hasn't occurred on this, nor a public hearing on this. Before the Waterkeeper, I was in private consulting for many years, and the APA review was the most biased review that I've ever experienced. I would have loved to have come in front of a board like that as an applicant. With all due respect to the appellate court's decision, one thing that got me is they spend like a half a page on a late submission by the Waterkeeper. I actually contacted APA staff, received an email, and told me that I could send this letter in. So I don't know how that could be determined to be late when the APA staffer told me I could do that. Regarding this board, I think counting today was the 7th presentation on pro Priscilla application. There's not been one in 3 years hearing the other side. So I think that is biased. DEC's statement today before the vote, they do not have any concerns with toxicity or persistence of the pesticide when used as per the label. That's been one of our big concerns, use as per the label. The lake has a lot of circulation, a lot of currents, a lot of water exchange. That's been documented in peer-reviewed papers, information provided, but not once has we been asked to provide that information to this board. Never an interest in understanding the dynamics on the lake or the water exchange. Whenever it was used, I think up in Putnam is referred to as skeptical, suspect science, but never more interest in finding out more about that. Regarding PFAS, we are concerned about the Minnesota report. We understand it's a broader, more inclusive definition than EPA or New York State, but why not be a little more protective for Lake George? Why not take that extra time? Why not be protective of the lake? Because that's what we really feel. What is best for Lake George? This is not a crisis. And really, what about those water intakes that are right under where this is? You're going to be putting that forever chemical right there. I do have one question, and I'll wrap up, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the scope of the contract, the resolution that was passed, just wondered what the actual scope items were. Does that include sampling? Because that contract has appeared to diminish by more than 50%. So that's a heck of a deal. And I'm just wondering, does that include the sampling that's to be done? I'm just confused whether that is going to come back as an additional cost, because I don't think that that's the full scope. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving across.
Hello, my name is Taka Kokabu. I live in Hague, on the water up there, with my lovely wife and baby somewhere in the back there. You probably heard her earlier. I'm a mechanical engineer at trade. Worked in power plants before and seen wastewater treatment systems there, as well as working now on the Vermont side for many customers, including wastewater. And I bring this up because just last week I went to the Green Mountain Water Environment Association Spring Conference, where they had multiple seminars on various things. But you you just walk around and everybody's just talking about PFAS, PFAs, however you pronounce it, as an a possible issue and how we got to do things, to the point where in Vermont whatever, as stated earlier, the definition might be broader or less or whatever, but in the end, if it could be considered that, I think it's worth more careful consideration. In Vermont, it seems like in a lot of ways they're doing that. One of the things that they're doing now is for septic removal, 55% of Vermont is on septic system information we don't need to know here necessarily, but a lot of that was getting transported up till 2 to 3 years ago to 20 different landfill sites, and the rest were going to wastewater treatment facilities in Vermont. As of sometime this year, about 20 of those, 19 to 20, most of this was shut down. There's only a single one left, landfills that accept septage, and the reason for that was because of concerns about PFAS contaminating the groundwater in those locations, and therefore they had to be shut down. So if just across the border here, there's concerns about those kinds of things going on, regardless of the broad definition or not, I think, I'm just concerned about possible forever chemicals. It's not like, it dissipates and this or that. There's a lot of chemicals that are getting released all over the place, and for me, living right on the lake, and me and my baby washing our hands with it, drinking it every single day, I do not want an experiment, as we call it. I don't want my baby to be an experiment. That is just beyond me. So I just want to say that. And one other thing I will say, as is pointed out, that it seems like this is two areas that have not been hand harvested for a long time. So in some ways, I think the board is thinking, well, this is an $18,000 or $19,000 savings, but it really isn't. If we haven't been hand harvesting, it's an additional expense to put chemicals in my drinking water. So I don't think when you guys say this will save us money, it's actually costing us more money at the current moment. So I think financially, you got to look at it a different way as well. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Third row.
This is for all of us in the room. My name is Charles Tall. I grew up in Lake George, went to Lake George High School. I now, for the last 25 years, have owned and now permanently live in Hewlett's Landing, New York, very near my neighbor Lucinda. I've always had a deep concern for the lake. I have a very deep concern for the community and the health of the community as well. Kurt Gödel was one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. And anyone who has studied math knows about all of Gödel's work. He was a close colleague and great friend of Albert Einstein, and he profoundly influenced scientific thinking and our understanding of scientific certainty. Gödel's own need for certainty tragically led to his own death. Because Gödel could not be certain the food that was placed in front of him, he stopped eating and starved to death. Yes, 1978, January, was a tragic year for engineers studying math. We couldn't believe this happened. This true and tragic story illustrates dangers, potential dangers, of abandoning reason for the need for certainty. And it worries me greatly that we're on a similar perilous course today. According to case law, from not the highest but the second highest court in New York, there is no need for an adjudicatory hearing. We have to deal with this. This is current law. We need to respect it, even though we don't like it. And regardless of anyone's, my personal opinion, or yours, on the testing and use of Priscillachlor in Lake George, we must not allow this growing divide between important and crucial stakeholders to continue. This prolonged face-off has been causing irreparable damage to the relationships within our community, and de-escalation needs to happen sooner rather than later, when I think the possibility of healing might vanish. None of us want to see milfoil continue to proliferate in the lake, I believe. I also think none of us want to have Priscillachlor be always used or tested to cure it, but all of us should work towards this de-escalation from this point forward. Now, I have an idea. The LGA has more than $17 million in its endowment to use fit in the protection and care of the lake. They can use this any way they want to. And they do advocate for the current and increased use of manual eradication efforts against milfoil. I asked the LGA to determine what they believe the cost would be for the 200 to 300 milfoil sites that we have. Make an estimate and make a real significant commitment to money to fund this. Take a big chunk of the money that you've been entrusted with. All of this money came from public donors like me, like you. I've given to the fund. Take a big chunk. Make a big dent. If your initial efforts show success towards Priscillacor, then testing or the continued use of Priscillacor will become a dead issue. And I'm confident the short-term hit of the many millions of dollars it might take will be filled again with new money. But in the meantime, this is going to probably happen. Let's deal with that. And in the meantime, continue to be scientific with all your might. It is most if and when most likely when the Priscillacor tests do take place, you test, study, report, monitor, and publish your findings as the scientific-driven organization you are. Help add to the scientific knowledge base around Priscillacor where you can, even though you oppose its use in the lake. In other words, please do not create a Kurt Gödel scenario right here in Lake George. I think it's time to move on and accept the outcomes that we're presented with, what is going to happen, even if we disagree and are disappointed. Let's change the narrative, heal, and get back to working together. And that's my public comment more than...
Thank you. Now, my depth perception isn't terribly good, but we're still working in the third row. Honor Society, moving across. The famous man from Ticonderoga.
I want to thank you folks for sitting here and listening to us. I mean, it shows that there is a problem, and it shows you are interested in giving us the avenue to do it. To me, this is like chemotherapy for a lake. We're putting in a chemical that we know is poisonous, and we're expecting a miraculous cure. And we know it doesn't always work in chemotherapy. And we don't have the time to prove that it will work here. And that's why I back down and say we need that time. We need to know it won't hurt the human. Now in chemotherapy, they take the chance. We can't take the chance here. We can't take the chance. We have to know it's not going to hurt the human to proceed. And that's what I hope we do. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Lee Youngblood. I work as the interim executive director at LGA. And first I want to just acknowledge that I know that everybody here cares about Lake George because it is so special. And because it's so special, I also want to encourage the Commission to take the time to create a comprehensive invasive species management plan. Maybe in the end, when we have input from everyone, the towns, residents, the landowners, LGA, and all of the other partners, maybe there'll be herbicides in it, maybe there'll be hand harvesting, but wouldn't it be really great to see a management plan for the whole lake? Because it is so special, and we would know it's going to be thoughtful. The project that's being proposed right now is a demonstration on 2 sites. And even if that does go forward, I still think that having a plan for right now, there's really like a paragraph on the website about what happens if after this demonstration, what are we going to do next? Let's create a plan for what happens next. There's a lot of sites that could be applied. This morning we heard an example for 3 ponds. One of them was 100 acres. You know, Lake George is 28,000 acres. P-Core was introduced into the market in 2017, and your own website says it's been used in 200 lakes across the country. I looked it up. The Adirondacks itself has 3,000 lakes. So why should Lake George go first when it's such a special place? Let's take some time, make sure we really want to use it. That's what I really hope you'll think about. It has only been used 200 places in the whole country. Why should Lake George be taking at risk? Now, I'm just going to pause there. I had a question earlier, this idea about persistence. We heard this morning that after 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 hours, you couldn't detect it in the water, yet the plant doesn't grow for 2 years. I'm not a biologist, I am a conservationist, but if it's not still in the water, why is the plant not growing 2 years later? I think there's a lot we don't know about this chemical. There are a lot of, and many people don't want to take that risk. That's one question that just doesn't make sense to me, and I wish I had asked the botanist how that works, but there are a lot of questions that people have. And so that's the main thing that I want to ask, is that we take time to create a comprehensive plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Try not to fall down.
Fall towards me, I'll catch you.
My name is Ely Goldsmith, and our family has owned land on Lake George since 1904 and is currently in possession of the north side of what has recently been federally designated as Jalafnite Bay. There are 3 homes on our property, which we use for both personal enjoyment and to generate a substantial amount of rental income, which we then use to offset our property tax liabilities. For the last several years, there's been an intense effort championed by the Lake George Park Commission and several other New York State agencies to eradicate milfoil in Lake George. Plans to this effect, however, were not scheduled to be conducted in any of the more remote areas our lake has to offer. Instead, a location was chosen not much more than 100 feet from our beach, where generations of children have played and swam in total safety without being subjected to any kind of potential health problems. The implementation of your proposed milfoil control experiment in this area would severely affect our ability to enjoy life at the lake and is most likely to devastate our crucial rental business. Renters may not spend much time debating the pros and cons of milfoil control, but they will certainly be very focused on protecting their children's health. There's little doubt in our minds that they would simply cancel our rental contracts, which under the circumstances they would have every right to do. We wouldn't survive the loss of one season's rental income. It doesn't end here. In the years to come, nobody will remember or much care how the milfoil control operation played out. They will, however, remain fully indoctrinated with the knowledge that one must avoid rental properties located in that bay where they dump those chemicals. Not logical, but that's the way we do it. New York State owns approximately 20 miles of lakeshore shoreline. That's over 100,000 feet of land where experimentation could be reasonably and safely conducted with very little human contact. Yet you chose an area of operation just about 100 feet from a beach where children play and swim. Now, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't it appear to you that there's something wrong here? Don't you think it's time for you to rethink your present plan? If you were to conduct these operations in areas that are truly remote, we would reduce the risk of making a grave error, because very, very few humans would ever be affected. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Actually, This picture is of my 3 children on Lake George. I'm 3rd generation here. My children are 4. There are 5 generations in my family on Lake George at Hewlett's Landing. This is an emotional thing for me, so not scientific, this is all emotion, but we own 3 waterfront homes. My entire family opposes the use of Procelicor until we have more information and more data. My personal home is just south of Sheep Meadow in Frederick Point location. This is a question. I'm just wondering how you chose the 2 locations that you're putting the chemical in. And were the people that live in those locations, were they notified at all? Thirdly, would you please reconsider hand harvesting? Try that again. And now that we have the boat cleaning stations and we are, have mandatory septic checks and everything, that's going to change the health of the lake as well, that we're on top of that more. And I'm just asking that you can reconsider or delaying and allow for more data for this chemical before you put it in our lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we at the end of the 3rd row? Go. No, don't be sorry. Sounds like my house. Who's next?
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, sorry, it's nap time. Sorry.
Bring the baby if you want.
Hi, thank you for the time to speak, and thank you for your service to Lake George and the people that live on Lake George. So, that's Nora, who you just all met. She's 14 months old, and she drinks the water out of Lake George every single day. She brushes her teeth in it. She has 7 toothers, we call them. Maybe Dr. Dean knows that term. So she has 7 teeth that we brush with Lake George water. She bathes in it. We live year-round on this lake. My family has lived in this area for generations. The thought that there could be a chemical in her drinking water that she is exposed to every single day is just devastating to me as a mother. I'm also a physician, and I specialize in environmental medicine, and I spend a lot of time on the research between environmental toxins and cancer, endocrine disruption, autoimmune disease, neurodevelopmental disabilities. So to me, there doesn't seem to be a milfoil emergency. I know, people might have different opinions about that, but there doesn't seem to be an emergency here. And I think that when you think about who could be most impacted by this, who is most vulnerable to these chemicals, it's children. It is children as they grow, as their bones develop, their brains, their endocrine systems. It is children. So that is who I'm asking you to protect here. I wish you would vote again. I wish you would take the words that all these people are saying, your constituents, the people you've promised to protect, and I wish you would vote again and consider that this decision you make, you are impacting generations potentially. And maybe some of you are parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, I don't know. I just ask you to imagine how you would feel if your child's drinking water was potentially contaminated as they were growing. So I don't know, I guess I could talk about some science and things like that, but that's really my main ask is, as a mother, is to reconsider. Please. Thank you.
Who is next back there? Moving across. Honor system. None? None over there? How about over here? How about our alternate row here?
Ken, someone back there.
Someone back there? Okay. Yep. Jump right up.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Starker. I am a retired professor of surgery from Columbia University. You mentioned earlier that you want to hear about science. Well, during my career, I published multiple papers in peer-reviewed journals. I analyzed multiple papers for peer-reviewed journals, and I would just like to let you know that just because something's published in a peer-reviewed journal does not mean it's scientific gospel. It can be wrong. There's many ways people get articles published. I don't want to go into the details, but just take that. Second, on a personal note, I am a cancer survivor of a cancer that was induced by something that was deemed safe. I just remember the EPA has been wrong before. Thank you.
Did you say? Are we all clear over in that corner?
Let's go to the other side.
How about starting down here?
Hi, I'm Ginger Kuntal. Thank you very much for letting us speak. I wish we had been able to speak before you voted on the resolution. I did notice that all the other resolutions, people did have a chance to speak at great length about them. So I'm a little confused about why we're speaking after the resolution has already passed. Hopefully you'll have another chance to reconsider, as somebody suggested. But appreciate this opportunity anyway. I've worked with Dave and with the Lake George Park Commission on other issues, and I really admire a lot of the work you do. We just don't agree on this particular issue, and again, glad to be able to talk about it. The Jefferson Project on Lake George celebrated its 10-year anniversary. Lake George probably has more scientific data about it than any other body of water in the world, or one of, at least it's one of those. And yet, we have not been able to present that data to all the commissioners. We heard from 3 other lake managers that are not Lake George about the effectiveness of Procelicor. I don't think anybody contests the fact that you put it on milfoil and the plant dies. I think what we're concerned about is what happens a few years later. So it was unfortunate that we could only hear about what's happening in the other lakes and not what's happening in Lake George. My other question is, 2 years ago you appropriated $39,000 for the management company that was going to put the Procelicor in the lake. Now it's $18,000 and something. Of that $39,000, I believe $16,000 was for monitoring after the fact. So I don't know if you're not going to monitor this time or you're going to come back and get that money later. But even taking out that $16,000, that leaves $23,000 to pay to the company that was going to put it in. So I'm not quite sure why now it's $18,000 when 2 years ago it was $23,000. So, yeah, those are my points, and I guess we won't get any answers today, but just something to consider as you move forward and think about how to vote on this the next time. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. As our next is walking up, some of you have asked specific questions and you've noted that there's no response from this table. And that's because this is for public comment, not public hearing. But if anybody in this room has a question and you've got them, call Dave, call the staff, call me. We'll get the answer for you. We have the answer for you. We're just not going to spend today debating the answer. But you have a specific question about why it's this number, now it's this number, make a phone call. Dave Wick is the most responsive guy. He goes away for the weekend and he inundates us with emails from a beach somewhere with his wife and his kids, but his in-laws. And Dave, take a day off, will you please? Leave us alone. He'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. So the answers are there. And then you can spread them amongst yourselves, because I assume you're all friends. You're here together. Please.
Hi, my name is Jillian McGinnis. I'm in Hewlett's Landing, directly in Sheep Meadow Bay. We own about 400 feet of lakefront property. My husband Michael and I obviously object to the use of Procelicor. I am a cancer immunologist, so I totally understand how long it takes to study chemicals and how long the process can go on for many, many years to understand their toxicity. So I totally understand that Procelicor works great in the short term. My main concern is the long-term effects of Procelicor, as well as the fact that I don't feel like it's a crisis specifically in the 2 bays that you're going to be testing in. We boat in there, I paddleboard, we swim in it every day. Sheep Meadow Bay definitely does not have a huge problem with Procelicor. With milfoil. So I definitely think that you should reconsider what everyone is saying here, that the potential environmental and health impacts. A lot of us haven't been here throughout the winter when a lot of decisions have been being made. We've had a lot of Zoom meetings with a lot of members here, and we haven't been properly notified of a lot of the new applications that have been being put forward. Dave Wick, my husband's had conversations with you on public Zoom calls about getting our proper contact information, and we are a little upset that we didn't receive information about the new application, even though we've had prior meetings with you about that. So I think you should really listen to what everybody's saying here. I think we have some pretty serious concerns and objections, and I know we all love the lake and we all really want to do what's best. And I'm not saying that Procelicor, is something that isn't going to work, but I know hand harvesting is something that's out there that we've been using. We've specifically said that we would offer up as much money as needed to get the milfoil out of our bay. I think you should ask maybe more of the people that are donating to the LGA and the people that live on the bay to try to get more funds to try to get more people to eradicate this milfoil. I know it's not a long-term sort of thing. You have to constantly, do this hand harvesting method, but I think it's something that should be pursued in light of all of this potential toxicity that we've been talking about with Procelicor. I know that a decision has been made today, but I think you should try to reconsider based on what we're all saying. These are all the people that live here and drink the water. And that was heartbreaking to see. I'm not a mother myself, but it was heartbreaking to hear her story. So just a thought for reconsideration of your decision. Thank you very much.
Working down the rest of that line. Next. There you go.
For the record, I think people suck. We keep, as humans, destroying our environment, and then we go off half-cocked trying to fix it. And I think not having the information on the long-term effects of this chemical is going to be detrimental to the long-term life of Lake George and the Adirondacks. It took, 60, 70, 80 years for us to only start seeing wildlife bounce back from the effects of DDT. Who am I? I am Colleen Knight. I am 5th generation Lake George. This is my home.
Take your time.
I'm glad to hear that on your lake, the immediate effects are not horrific. And I also know that not all of the science and data is in, and we could be murdering people and our environment. our home. This is our home. And we're going off half-cocked. And you're not listening because you've already voted to us, the people who live here. We, the people, are not being represented.
Thank you.
I'd like to go. My name's Deborah McKella. I live in Hague. I've been coming here my whole life. Okay. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a regular citizen asking you to listen to us as everybody else has. The other managers talked about their lakes, which are totally different than Lake George. I wonder if they drink water out of their lake. Again, it's the drink water, and I have to bring this up because I want to know, after Priscilla has been applied, if we filled bottles of that water and sat it on each of your desks, how comfortable would you be to drink one bottle, or 2 bottles, or 3 bottles? Because I wouldn't be comfortable to do that. Luckily, I don't have to do that at the lake, on Lake George, but I have many friends with many children that come all the time. The other consideration is, are they going to come anymore? Is it going to affect business? How's it going to the people that make a living off that business, who struggle because they have 6 or 8 weeks in the summer to make that living? So I really, really think you should consider what you're doing, because you have the power. You have great power to make a change or to save the lake. And again, I'm with everybody else. I don't see the crisis with the milfoil on Lake George. I understand the smaller lakes. I've seen what it can do. But please, please think about it. Really think about it. We need your help. I don't want to feel like we're constantly battling to do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. If I might pour one more.
My name is Carolyn Curran, and I have a house on Sandy Bay. I've been coming to Sandy Bay since I was 3 years old. I've seen a lot of changes in the quality of the water. A lot of it is silty that used to be hard sand in Sandy Bay. A lot of it is Asian clams. We have all kinds of issues, and we have a lot of milfoil across the bay from me at Boats by George. I pick up milfoil floating on the lake all the time. I don't want it rooting near my property. But I don't have a problem with them treating for Priscilla across the bay from me. Treat the milfoil across the bay in Sandy Bay, and I will drink the water after they say it's clear. I was very impressed by the application that Dave Wick wrote. I wonder how many people in this room read that application for Priscilla. 1. 2. It's 91 pages long. Do you know how many plants are in Sheepshead Bay? I do. It's in the application. There's 26, and there's pictures of every single one of them. They're all outlined. It's all explained. There are aerial maps of where those plants are in the bay. There are maps of where that Priscilla is going to go. It's all outlined. It's like reading a scientific paper that's kind of way over my head and very detailed as to how it gets applied and how it gets put in vials afterward, how many weeks afterward, how many days afterward. It's tested. So once they test it, if it was in Sandy Bay and they tell me it's okay to drink it, I won't have a problem. So I think it's a good thing, and I commend all of you. There's a lot of work that went into this. There's a lot of work that went into these applications. It's easy to complain about things, but it's incredible what's gone into this to get to the point where it is.
So I'm glad you're going ahead with this, and I thank all of you for all of what you've done to work this out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. I see no others. Would you like your 3 minutes I promised you?
Me?
You. I offered you 3 minutes. I offered you 3 minutes to be the final
I
speaker.
will tell you that what we're missing out on here is you look at this chemical, and when you look at the degradation pathways from fluoroperoxyfen benzyl, it has 5 metabolites. And if you look at how they transform and the ways they do it, if you look at the photolytic mechanisms, the hydrolysis, there's the word, and the metabolic degradation products, there's many other chemicals that become of it. Half-lives doesn't mean it's gone. It means it's still there, and whether it's a first-order degradation pathway or whatever, it's still there, and the metabolites still exist. So we have not looked at the sediments. We haven't even discussed the sediments. Public hearing would be good to discuss this, because we know where much of it will be. We know that it wipes out the bacteria in those sediments, because if you read all of the experimentations, and of course, you have to look at the rice paddy ones, of course, too, because that's the same active ingredient. So we'll have a persistence in this environment of ours. The reason I asked earlier about the scope is because I don't think you appreciate the fact that you can't just look at basic water quality parameters, and you can't look at just the after. You can't take a video and look at the pretty picture either. That's not going to tell you what we need to know. As scientists, we need to know how it's affecting it. Is there epinasty coming on? Is there hormesis occurring, which we know Procelicor does to plants when it's applied? We know they become persistent. We know that chemical companies kind of make a living off of the fact that resistance builds up, and they just have to tweak the chemical more and more. So it's a non-ending proposition. I think my 3 minutes are up, but I did want to say, Ken, I don't know, when you mentioned earlier that, we're going to start doing stuff for the woolly adelgid, I don't think, you sort of got quiet afterwards, because I don't know if you really understood what that whole process is about. And, what are the watershed characteristics, and are we just going to do single trees, or how is this going to happen? There's a lot to that, and we need to know more about that. But just jumping in or off at this point for Lake George is unnecessary. You're not going to learn from this. When they did the experiment on Minerva Lake, it proves that this, which was supposed to be in a small section of Minerva Lake, it spread throughout the entire lake. Oh, and by the way, I was there for the presentation, and they eliminated data points because they thought they were too high. So we need to really look at this. A public hearing, adjudicatory hearing, is the only way to go at this point, because then you'll find out the rest of the information. And I know each of you. I know that you probably feel ambivalent about this, but there might be some sort of pressure, political or otherwise, to move forward. I don't know. So many of you are terrific people, and I really want you to You know, I'm looking at you, Kathy, and I think, Kathy, I know that these waters mean a great deal to you. And if you've even read half of the stuff that's going on, you'll know that EPA has already told us this is a toxin. It's going to kill off our native plants. It does. You don't upset the community structure and expect to have a positive result, especially when you don't measure before and after. Ken.
Here's the music. Thank you very much. I'm making a presumptuous statement that we've heard from everybody. Hearing none of that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
That's the one I wanted to hear. Second?
Second.
Ain't no discussion. Motion carried. Thank you very much for everybody. We appreciate it.